The stars shined in the endless dark, cold and distant. The U.S. Vanguard moved through space, its engines humming softly. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge, watching the endless void ahead. The ship had received a mission from Earth Command. A strange signal had come from the edge of human space, and they were sent to investigate. Lieutenant Olivia Brooks sat at her station, scanning the area for any unusual activity. "Captain, we are nearing the coordinates," she said. Her voice was calm, but there was a hint of tension. They did not know what they would find. Ethan Moore, the science officer, looked at his screen. "The signal is weak now, but it was strong before. Something is here, or was here." Carter nodded. "Bring us closer." Full scan of the area. The ship moved forward, and soon they saw it. A massive alien structure floated in the dark. It was huge, larger than any human-made station. It looked old, with parts broken and drifting away. There was no light, no movement. It was dead. "What is that?" Olivia whispered. "Unknown," Ethan said. "It does not match any known alien design." Carter leaned forward. "Prepare a boarding team. We need to find out what happened here." A team was assembled quickly. Olivia and Ethan joined the security officers as they suited up. The docking bay opened, and their shuttle moved toward the strange structure. As they got closer, they saw details that made them uneasy. There were signs of battle, scorch marks, broken walls, and floating debris. Something violent had happened here. The shuttle landed inside a large docking area. The doors were open, leading into darkness. The team stepped out, their suit lights cutting through the blackness. The air was thin and stale. The silence pressed against them. "Stay alert," Carter's voice came through their radios. They moved carefully, weapons ready. The walls had strange markings, unreadable symbols that looked hurriedly carved. Olivia ran her fingers over them. "These are warnings," she said. "Someone tried to leave a message." Ethan checked his scanner. "No life signs, but I am detecting organic material." They turned a corner and saw them. Bodies. Strange, alien bodies. They were humanoid, but their skin was pale and stretched. Their eyes were wide open in terror. Some were clutching weapons, others had tried to run. None had survived. "What killed them?" one of the security officers asked, his voice uneasy. Ethan knelt beside one. "No wounds, no burns. They look like they just died in fear." A sudden noise echoed through the corridor, a faint scratching sound. The team froze. Olivia lifted her rifle, eyes scanning the dark. "Did you hear that?" Someone whispered. "Yes," Carter's voice came. "Keep moving, but stay sharp." They pushed forward, deeper into the structure. They reached what looked like a control room. A large screen flickered weakly. Ethan moved to it, trying to access data. The symbols on the screen shifted, and then something happened. The language changed, becoming readable. "They came from the dark," Ethan read aloud. "They cannot be stopped. They took our voices. They took our minds. They are here." Olivia felt a chill. Who are they talking about? Before Ethan could answer, the lights flickered. The sound returned, closer now. A whispering, like voices speaking just out of reach. The team turned, weapons ready. The darkness seemed to move. "Back to the shuttle. Now," Carter ordered through the radio. They ran. Footsteps echoed behind them, though nothing could be seen. The whispers grew louder. Olivia felt something cold against her neck, like a breath of icy air. Panic rose in her chest, but she pushed forward. They reached the shuttle and sealed the door. The engines roared to life. The structure grew smaller as they escaped back to the U.S. Vanguard. The whispers stopped, but the fear remained. Carter met them as they returned. "Report." Ethan swallowed hard. "Something happened there. Something terrible. We need to leave." Olivia handed him a datapad. "We got part of their message, but we don't know what it means." Carter looked at the words. "They are here." Silence fell over the crew. Outside, the stars remained cold and distant. The void was not empty, and something had noticed them. The U.S. Vanguard floated in the endless dark, silent and alone. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge, looking at the strange alien structure on the screen. It was now behind them, but the fear still clung to the crew. The whispers, the bodies, the unknown threat. They had all seen it, but they did not know what it was. Lieutenant Olivia Brooks sat at her station, scanning the area. The readings were normal, but she did not trust them. "Captain, there is no sign of movement, but something does not feel right." Ethan Moore, the science officer, stood beside her. "We should leave this area. We still don't know what we faced back there." Carter nodded. "Set course for the nearest station. Full speed." The engines roared as the ship turned. The stars outside stretched as they moved. The crew wanted to believe they were safe now, but the fear remained. Something had followed them. They did not see it, but they felt it. Hours passed in silence. Then, suddenly, the lights flickered. The ship shook as a strange energy wave passed through it. "What was that?" Olivia asked, gripping the console. Ethan checked the readings. Unknown. No impact, no damage, but he paused. Something changed. The screens around the bridge flickered. Strange symbols appeared, the same markings they had seen on the alien structure. Carter clenched his fists. "Get me an answer. Now." "I am trying," Ethan said, typing quickly. "But the system is not responding." Then, a voice came through the speakers. It was not human. It was low, broken, and filled with something unnatural. The words were in a language they did not know, but the meaning was clear. A warning. The crew froze. Olivia's hands trembled as she listened. "We should stop. We need to find out what this means." Carter shook his head. "No. We keep moving. Whatever this is, we are not staying to find out." But then the ship stopped. The engines shut down. The lights dimmed. A deep silence filled the air. "We lost power," a crew member shouted. Ethan checked the controls. "This is impossible. Nothing is damaged, but the ship is frozen." Then the whispering returned. It was soft at first, barely a breath in the air. Then it grew louder. The crew looked around, their faces pale. The sound was everywhere, inside their ears, inside their minds. Olivia clutched her head. "Make it stop." Carter tried to speak, but his voice failed him. The sound pressed against them, heavy and cold. Then it stopped. A new sound replaced it. A tapping sound. Slow, steady, coming from the walls of the ship. "Where is it coming from?" someone asked, their voice shaking. Ethan's screen flashed with a new reading. "Captain, there is something inside the ship." Silence. Then a scream. It came from the lower deck. The crew turned to look at the security cameras. The screen showed a dark hallway, empty except for one crew member, Engineer Harris. He stood frozen, staring into the shadows. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then the darkness moved. A shape formed behind him, shifting like smoke. It reached for him, and the screen went black. Carter grabbed the intercom. "Security, get down there now." But there was no response. "Captain," Olivia whispered, "we are not alone." Carter's hands tightened into fists. "Everyone, stay together. We find out what this is and take back control." The whispering started again, this time closer. The crew knew they had no choice. The ship was no longer theirs. Something had come with them from the alien structure, something unseen. And now, it was inside their home. The U.S. Vanguard was silent. The crew stood frozen, listening to the whispering sounds around them. The ship had stopped moving, and now something was inside. Captain Daniel Carter held his breath, his heart pounding. His crew looked at him, waiting for a command. Lieutenant Olivia Brooks gripped her weapon. "Captain, what do we do?" Carter forced himself to stay calm. "We move together. We find out what we are dealing with." Ethan Moore, the science officer, checked his scanner. His face was pale. "Captain, I don't understand this. There is something here, but it is not made of matter. It is not physical." Carter looked at him. "Then what is it?" Ethan shook his head. "I don't know." A loud bang came from the hallway. The crew turned in fear. The security cameras showed a door moving on its own. The whispering grew louder, like many voices speaking at once. The lights flickered, casting strange shadows on the walls. "We should not be here," Olivia whispered. "We need to leave." Carter looked around. "We can't leave until we have power. We need to get to engineering." The crew nodded, fear in their eyes. They moved together, stepping into the dark hallway. The air was heavy, as if something unseen was watching them. As they walked, the whispers followed. Shapes flickered at the edges of their vision. They saw shadows move, but when they turned to look, nothing was there. They reached engineering. The door was open. Inside, the emergency lights cast a dim red glow. The room was empty, or so they thought. Ethan checked the controls. Power is still offline, but the system is working. It is like something is keeping it shut down. Olivia turned her head sharply. "Did you hear that?" A faint sound, like breathing, came from the corner of the room. The crew pointed their lights. There was nothing there. Then a figure appeared. It was not human. It had no clear form, just darkness shaped like a person. Its face was empty, but the crew felt it watching them. The whispering became deafening. Olivia raised her weapon. "Stay back." The figure did not move. It only stood there, silent and waiting. Then more appeared. They filled the room, standing in the shadows, watching. "Captain," Ethan said, his voice shaking. "They are everywhere." Carter took a deep breath. "We have to get the power back. Now." Ethan's hands shook as he worked. The controls flickered, resisting him. The figures remained still, as if waiting for something. Then a voice spoke. It was not human. It echoed inside their heads, slow and cold. "You should not have come." Carter clenched his jaw. "Who are you? What do you want?" The voice did not answer. The figures did not move, but the whispering grew softer, as if waiting. Ethan pressed the final command. The ship's lights flashed, and the engines roared back to life. The figures shuddered, then faded into the darkness. The whispering stopped. The crew stood still, breathing hard. The ship was theirs again. Carter looked around. "We are leaving. Now." They ran back to the bridge. The ship responded to their commands. The stars stretched as they jumped into hyperspace, leaving the dark place behind. But the fear remained. The whispering still echoed in their minds. They had escaped, but they knew the truth. Something was watching. Something was waiting. And it was not finished with them yet. The U.S. Vanguard moved through hyperspace, but the crew was not at ease. The whispering had stopped, and the strange figures had vanished. Yet everyone felt the presence had not truly left them. Something unseen still lingered. Captain Daniel Carter sat in his chair, his fingers gripping the armrests. His mind raced with questions. What were those things? Why did they warn them? And most importantly, were they truly gone? Lieutenant Olivia Brooks scanned the ship's systems. "All readings are normal, Captain. We are back on course." Ethan Moore, the science officer, was not convinced. "Something is still wrong. I checked the ship's logs. There are small power fluctuations happening all over. It is like something is moving through the ship, but it is invisible." Carter did not like that. "Run a full diagnostic. If anything is here, I want to know." Ethan nodded and got to work. Meanwhile, Olivia turned to the security team. "Double the patrols. No one walks alone." Hours passed. The ship was quiet, but the crew remained on edge. Every shadow seemed darker, every sound louder. Then the lights flickered again. Carter stood. "Report." Ethan looked at his screen. his eyes wide. Something is in the main corridor. I am picking up movement, but I cannot see it. Carter grabbed his communicator. Security team, report to the main corridor now. A team of 5 officers rushed to the corridor. The hallway was empty, but the lights flickered, and the air felt heavy. They moved forward carefully. Then, a deep breath echoed through the corridor. "Who's there?" One of the officers shouted, raising his weapon. No answer. A sudden force slammed into them. One officer was lifted off his feet and thrown against the wall. The others fired their weapons, but their shots hit nothing. The air itself seemed to push them back. On the bridge, Olivia watched the security cameras. She gasped, "Captain, something is attacking them, but I can't see it." Carter's face hardened. "Get them out of there. Now." The security team ran, dragging their injured comrade with them. The unseen force did not follow. It had made its point. Ethan's voice was shaking. "Captain, we are dealing with something beyond our understanding. It does not obey the laws of physics. It can touch us, but we cannot touch it." Carter exhaled slowly. "Then we need to find another way. If weapons do not work, maybe there is something else." Olivia thought for a moment. The alien structure had markings, warnings. Maybe they knew how to stop this thing. We still have the data we collected. Ethan's fingers flew over his console. "I will analyze it now." Time passed slowly. Every crew member was on high alert, watching the shadows. The ship's lights flickered now and then, reminding them that something still lurked among them. Finally, Ethan spoke. "Captain, I think I found something." The markings mentioned sound. Certain frequencies may weaken or even repel the entity. Carter nodded. "Can we generate that frequency?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, but it needs to be broadcast across the entire ship." "Do it." Ethan activated the frequency. A low, humming sound filled the air. At first, nothing happened. Then, the ship trembled. The whispering returned, but this time, it was different. It was pained, angry. The lights flashed. The air grew cold. A deep, inhuman scream echoed through the halls. Then, silence. The ship stabilized. The readings returned to normal. The unseen presence was gone. Olivia let out a breath. Did it work? Ethan checked his scanner. No movement. No energy shifts. "I think we forced it out." Carter sat back in his chair. "Let's hope it stays that way." The crew remained cautious, but the ship stayed quiet. Whatever had haunted them was gone. For now, the U.S. Vanguard was quiet. The crew felt relief, but no one trusted the silence. Captain Daniel Carter remained on the bridge, watching the monitors. The strange presence was gone, but he knew their troubles were not over. Lieutenant Olivia Brooks sat at her station. "Captain, all systems are stable. There are no more energy readings." Ethan Moore, the science officer, was still uneasy. "I don't know, Captain. That thing left, but where did it go? If it was truly destroyed, shouldn't we have seen something?" Carter nodded. "We need to stay alert. Olivia, monitor all frequencies. If anything changes, I want to know." The crew tried to return to normal duties. Engineers repaired damage from the encounter. Security patrolled the ship, but everyone felt something was still wrong. Then, a report came from the lower deck. A crew member, Officer Grant, had gone missing. Carter called the security team. Where was he last seen? "Deck 5, near the storage room," a security officer responded. Carter, Olivia, and Ethan rushed to the location. The hallway was empty, but the air felt heavy. The lights flickered for a second, then steadied. Ethan scanned the area. No life signs, but the walls show a faint energy trace. Olivia frowned. "It's the same energy as before, isn't it?" Ethan nodded. "Yes, it means the entity was here." Carter clenched his jaw. "Let's check the storage room." They entered the room carefully. Inside, crates and supplies were scattered. but there was no sign of Officer Grant. Then Olivia pointed at the floor. "Captain, look at this." A faint trail of dark marks led toward the far wall. It looked like something had been dragged. Carter followed the trail. He tapped his communicator. "Grant, do you copy?" Silence. Then a whisper. It was soft, distant. It was not coming from the communicator. It was in the room. The crew froze. The whispering grew louder, surrounding them. The air turned cold. A shadow moved in the corner, shifting like smoke. "Back away," Carter ordered. Slowly. But before they could move, the shadow lunged. The room went dark. The whispering became screams. Carter felt a force push against him. Olivia gasped as something brushed past her. Ethan fell to the ground, gripping his head. Then the lights returned. The whispering stopped. Ethan gasped for breath. It tried to take us." Carter held him up. "We need to get out of here. Now." They ran out of the storage room. As they reached the hallway, Olivia looked back. The shadow was still there, watching them. Back on the bridge, Carter gathered the senior crew. "This thing is still on the ship. It is not done with us." Olivia crossed her arms. "It is hunting us, one by one." Ethan looked pale. "We need to find a way to stop it completely. The sound frequency worked before. Maybe we need to use it again." Carter nodded. "Increase the power. Flood the entire ship with the frequency. This time, we drive it out for good." Ethan adjusted the controls. "Ready." Carter took a deep breath. "Do it." The low hum filled the ship. At first, nothing happened. Then, the ship shook. The whispering returned, but this time, it sounded like a scream. The crew watched the monitors. Shadows moved through the ship, twisting and shifting. They saw them flicker, trying to resist. Then, one by one, the shadows faded. The ship went still. Ethan checked the scanners. "Captain, it's gone. No energy readings. Nothing left." Carter exhaled. "Is it over?" Olivia looked around. For now, the crew knew the danger had passed, but deep down, they also knew something else. The human threat was still out there, waiting, watching, and it would return. The U.S. Vanguard drifted through space. The crew felt the silence around them. The energy readings were gone, but no one felt safe. They had driven the presence away, but had they truly defeated it? Captain Daniel Carter sat in his chair, staring at the main screen. The stars looked peaceful, but his mind was not. He knew the enemy was not finished. Lieutenant Olivia Brooks walked to him. "Captain, all systems are stable, but the crew is still shaken." Carter nodded. "I don't blame them. We need to stay ready. We cannot assume this is over." Ethan Moore, the science officer, entered the bridge. His face was pale. "Captain, I ran another scan. I found something." Carter turned to him. "What is it?" Ethan took a deep breath. "The energy we detected before, it left a trace. A small amount is still inside the ship. It is weak, but it is there." Olivia's eyes widened. "You mean it is not completely gone?" Ethan shook his head. "No, it is hiding, waiting." Carter stood up. "We need to find it before it regains strength. How do we track it?" Ethan checked his scanner. "The energy is moving. It is slow, but it is heading toward the lower decks." Carter tapped his communicator. "Security team, report to the lower decks immediately. We may have a situation." The team responded quickly. 5 officers moved to the lower decks, weapons ready. The air was cold. The lights flickered again. A soft whisper echoed through the hallway. One of the officers, Sam Reed, looked around. "Did you hear that?" The others nodded. They moved carefully. Then the whispering grew louder. A shadow appeared at the end of the hallway. It moved like smoke, twisting and shifting. The officers aimed their weapons. "Stay back," Sam shouted. The shadow lunged. The officers fired, but their weapons did nothing. The air itself pushed them back. One officer screamed as he was lifted off the ground and thrown into the wall. Another was dragged into the darkness. On the bridge, Carter heard the shouts through the communicator. "Fall back. Get out of there." The remaining officers ran, dragging their injured teammate with them. The shadow did not follow. It had made its move. Ethan looked at his scanner. "Captain, the energy is growing again. It is feeding on something." Olivia clenched her fists. "We need to stop it now. We cannot let it get stronger." Carter took a deep breath. "What if we force it into one location? If we can trap it, we might be able to destroy it for good." Ethan thought for a moment. "We could use the ship's energy grid. If we overload certain sections, we might force it into a single space. Then we hit it with the frequency at full power." Carter nodded. "Do it." Ethan and Olivia worked quickly. The ship trembled as power surged through different sections. The energy readings spiked. Then, the whispering turned into a scream. The shadow was being pulled toward the engine room. The crew could see it now, twisting and thrashing, trying to resist. But the energy forced it into the center of the room. "Now," Carter shouted. Ethan activated the frequency at maximum power. A deep hum filled the ship. The shadow writhed in pain. It let out one last, terrible scream before vanishing in a flash of light. Then, silence. Ethan checked his scanner. "It's gone." Carter exhaled. "For good." Ethan nodded. "Yes. No readings. No energy. It is over." Olivia looked at Carter. "Do you think we won?" Carter stared at the screen. "For now. But we need to be ready. Because next time, we might not be so lucky." The U.S. Vanguard floated silently in space. The crew tried to return to normal, but the fear still lingered. They had defeated the shadow, yet something did not feel right. Captain Daniel Carter stood on the bridge, looking at the screen. "Status report," he said. Lieutenant Olivia Brooks checked the systems. "All readings are normal, Captain. There are no signs of the energy. The ship is stable." Ethan Moore, the science officer, looked up from his console. "We won, but I cannot stop thinking about it. That thing did not belong in our world. What if there are more like it?" Carter nodded. "That is a possibility. We need to be prepared." The crew tried to move forward. Engineers repaired damaged sections of the ship. Medical officers treated the wounded. But the ship felt different. The air was heavy, like something unseen still watched them. Late at night, Officer Sam Reed walked down the hallway alone. The lights flickered for a second. He stopped and looked around. "Just a glitch," he whispered to himself. But deep down, he was not sure. As he continued, he heard a soft sound. A whisper. He turned quickly, but no one was there. His heart pounded. "Hello," he called out. Silence. He took a deep breath and continued. Then the whisper came again, closer this time. Sam started running. He reached the control room and locked the door behind him. His hands were shaking. He tapped his communicator. "Bridge, this is Reed. I think." The whispering filled the room. The lights went out. On the bridge, Carter frowned. "Reed, report." No response. "Security team, get to the control room now." The team arrived within minutes. They forced the door open and found Reed on the floor, unconscious. His face was pale. He was breathing, but barely. Olivia knelt beside him. "Get him to the med bay." Ethan checked his scanner. "Captain, I do not understand." There is no energy reading. No sign of anything unusual. Carter clenched his jaw. Then what happened to him? The med bay worked quickly. Reed woke up an hour later, his eyes filled with fear. "It spoke to me," he whispered. Carter leaned in. "What did it say?" Reed swallowed hard. "It said, 'It is not over. It will return. And next time, we won't be able to stop it.'" Silence filled the room. Ethan's face turned pale. "Captain, If that thing left something behind, something we cannot see. Carter cut him off. Then we need to find it before it finds us. The crew continued their work, but now every shadow felt darker. Every sound seemed louder. They had survived, but at what cost? Carter stood at the window, looking out at the stars. He knew one thing for sure. The human threat was far from over.